Someone asked, what led you to your initial career as a social worker, and how does your clinician influence what you do now? How does your work? Oh, it's Monday. How does your work as a clinician influence what you do now? Great question. I am a very, very, very proud social worker, and it's funny when I talk to folks who are in or thinking about going in the clinical background. I always tell them do social work, not counseling. No shade on all the counselors, the LPCs out there, but the social work profession is just so broad in that we are trained on not just like clinical, like counseling, mental health type stuff, but we'll really spend time looking at the macro environmental stuff, and we look at how does the environment affect the individual. And so I think I got ahead of myself. The question is, what led you to that? I always knew, actually, and I don't know how the heck I knew because I had not experienced a counselor. I mean, I didn't have the word social worker, but I always knew I wanted to help people. Um, and it wasn't just like I always want to help people. Like it was this vision of me doing what social workers do, but I was like 8 years old, so I have no idea how the heck I got that vision. But nonetheless, it resonated for me. And I found out later that apparently most people do not go through their lives being pretty clear in what they want to do. But I always knew. And so when I got to college, the only question was, at the time, I think I was debating psychology or social work, and I went with social work. And I'm glad I did for the reasons I just said earlier when I got ahead of myself, which is that our field really does a great job of reviewing the environment as a whole. And so how that plays into what I do now, it's so crazy because I ended up at one point getting into sales, which I thought I'd never do because I hate salespeople. And I just, never saw it coming, never saw myself as a businesswoman, actually. This evolved over the years, which is why I always tell y'all to stay aligned with the universe so that you can really be led where you're going rather than force outcomes, because otherwise I would never be here. I would have just been doing clinical work. But um, my work as a clinician influences really everything I do, because I ultimately see everything through a human-centered lens, right? And so that's what's actually allowed me not just to do well in business, but I would argue that I have a competitive advantage over most others in business, because most people in business aren't necessarily educated, is certainly not to the level I am on human behavior. And so my ability to understand humans in a very nuanced way is leveraged not only in when I consult organizations, but with any client I have. Those of you in the membership, everything we do is clinically informed. Not everyone needs counseling, right? Like really, who not everyone's like dealing with severe or heavy mental health issues. They just got life on their hands. And so to have the clinical background to give you education about how to maneuver life, is what we do. And I do that with folks in every level, in every industry. And so my background in social work has everything to do with everything I do. And I love it. Coincidentally, I did end up in psychology with a PhD in industrial and organizational psychology. And so I did start to learn the differences between psychology and social work. And I was reminded why social work's so awesome. No hate on psychology, but again, it's a more holistic approach to thinking about the human being, if you ask me.